One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about avoidance is this belief that distance means emotional absence. People assume that if someone cared deeply, they would naturally move closer, communicate openly, and fight for connection. But avoidance psychology does not operate that way. In fact, avoidants often do the opposite of what emotionally healthy people expect. The stronger the feeling, the stronger the urge to retreat. That contradiction confuses people. It creates emotional chaos because you are trying to interpret avoidant behavior through the lens of normal emotional expression. You believe silence means disinterest. You believe withdrawal means detachment. But for many avoidants, silence is not peace. It is emotional self-protection. Avoidants are individuals who learned consciously or unconsciously that vulnerability comes with danger. Somewhere in their emotional development, closeness became associated with pressure, loss of control, disappointment, or emotional overwhelm. So, when a connection starts becoming meaningful, something inside them activates defensively. Their nervous system begins treating intimacy as a threat instead of a source of safety. And Drew D, this is the part most people fail to understand. Avoidants are often deeply aware of their emotions internally, even while appearing emotionally unavailable externally. They think constantly. They analyze interactions repeatedly. They replay conversations long after they happen. But instead of moving toward connection when emotions intensify, they move away from it. Why? Because distance gives them the illusion of control. Control is psychologically comforting to avoidance. Emotional dependence is not. The moment they begin feeling emotionally attached, they also begin feeling vulnerable. And vulnerability to an avoidant can feel dangerously close to losing independence, identity, or emotional stability. So rather than expressing the attachment directly, they suppress it. They minimize it. They distract themselves from it. And often they physically withdraw from the very person they cannot stop thinking about. This is why some of the coldest behavior you will ever experience can come from someone who is actually emotionally affected by you the most. People expect emotional attachment to look warm, expressive, and obvious. But avoidant attachment often looks distant, incongruent, distant, and emotionally confusing. Not because the feelings are fake, but because the individual lacks the emotional capacity to comfortably hold both intimacy and self-protection at the same time. So, when an avoidant begins ignoring you, your instinct may be to panic. You may think, if I mattered, they would reach out. But psychologically, what often happens is much more complicated. The avoidant is trying to regulate emotions they do not fully know how to process. They are attempting to create emotional space because closeness it has triggered internal discomfort. This does not justify unhealthy behavior. It does not excuse emotional neglect or manipulation. But understanding the psychology changes how you interpret the silence. Instead of immediately assuming you are forgotten, you begin recognizing that avoidance is frequently an internal conflict, not an absence of feeling. And ironically, the more emotionally significant you become, the stronger that conflict can grow. That is why avoidants sometimes disappear right after moments of intimacy, vulnerability, or emotional closeness. The connection becomes real. The emotional stakes become real. And suddenly their internal defenses rise to protect them from emotions they fear they cannot manage safely. What makes this dynamic even more painful is that avoidants often convince themselves they need distance to think clearly, while the distance itself only deepens their emotional fixation.